So, welcome back, and this is section two. We are going to look at ethics and medicine from an Eastern perspective. So, let's start back in antiquity, in the pre-written record times, what I call the prenatal times of human society. And we have, the world over, everybody has to practice medicine from the start because people, sickness and injury, they happen. And the response to do something about it is highly instinctual. Over time, these skills seem to have developed to a high degree to the point that by the time the written record comes around, it seems like they're trying to capture something that is in danger of being lost, that was brought to a high level by the ancients, who are already ancient by the time that written history begins. So we see this kind of alluded to in the Wang Di Neijing. We certainly see it in the I Ching because the I Ching is one of the oldest, it kind of arose from antiquity. It was already in usage by the time we find these bones and turtle shell inscriptions that were used as oracles. It wasn't a complete system yet, but it evolved over time, and it goes, kind of some of the first things that humans did. So both Chinese medicine and the I Ching allow us to tap into the wisdom of the ancient times. We may never know what they were thinking, but these are we can kind of get a perspective, like a little telescope back into the prenatal of society. And at these times, we would call the medicine people would be the medicine men or women, would be shamans or shamaness. In Chinese, we call that the Wu. And back then, religion and medicine and culture seemed to be, they weren't highly differentiated. They were always kind of in a religious state of connection with nature. And they achieved some amazing things this way. And then as we start getting into the written record, it seems like we're starting to move into a little bit more of a paternalistic frame of mind, a little bit more logical, a little bit more rational, a little bit less animistic, a little bit less based on deep connection with nature. We're starting to reason things through for better and for worse. So each medicine system on the planet starts to try to get more things that are repeatable. We're trying to take out some of the superstition, and we're also trying to take out the fact that a person has to be highly connected to the spirits in order to accomplish medicine. Because then it's never the same thing twice when it's done this way, or if it's always based on demonology or karma. We don't really have a foundation for a medical system that we can train people in that's going to have predictable results. So this is sort of the throwing away of the baby with the bathwater thing that starts to happen. And what we have back then is that we have itinerant doctors that travel from village to village and, kind of hark their wares, and some of them are probably geniuses and other ones were probably not, like with anything. And then we also have these scholar doctors that were a bit more official, had some sort of training, even though there weren't imperial trainings for doctors at this point in time. And you have your three main schools of thought here are Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. And China has really become this wonderful amalgam of these three archetypal approaches to the world. Confucianism tends to be what is adopted by the state because Confucianism has a strong emphasis on creating harmony in society, kind of what can you do to benefit people on a practical level in your community. It still comes out from within, like you develop your virtue and you extend that into your action, to your family, to your community, and you create this ripple effect. But it is very based on the external actions, and this is easier for the state to use, to run, than Taoism, which is a little bit more mystical, a little bit based on the cultivation of the self, and a lot more watery and less rigid, things that don't come easy for the state to ever adopt. And then Buddhism has its own, places in time where it becomes more vogue. And then they kind of work. We have Confucianism for the state, and you have Buddhism as the state religion, and then Taoism as this cultural underbelly that has kept some of these things from the shamanic times. So these three are going to be constantly, overlapping. You'll have Buddhist nuns and monks, you'll have Taoist nuns and monks, and they'll have their own, pretty rigorous trainings and highly disciplined trainings, and they will also practice medicine. And then you'll have your scholar doctors that are getting more trained in official manners. So with this, we have, like in around the 500, 600 A.D., we have Sun Si Miao, who's this patron saint of, this great physician who became the patron saint of medicine, or one of them. And he identifies with himself as a Taoist. He obviously has Taoist training. There's places where his expertise in demonology is demonstrated in his writings. and a very mystical person, probably familiar with and masterful at all these Taoist practices of talismans and whatever else that may entail. And he uses a lot of Buddhist terminology. He understands the workings of karma from that Buddhist perspective. So he's a deeply religious person. But it's interesting, he's one of the first ones to blend these three systems as he writes this treatise on ethics. And now times, like at our school, we have Chinese medicine students will use the oath of Sun Si Miao, kind of like the Western doctor uses the Hippocratic Oath, both of which we have in the documents for this class. So Sun Si Miao writes everything more in Confucian terms. He kind of pulls out the mysticism, he pulls out the religion, and he offers up the ways for doctors to behave in the most ethical manner that's going to benefit the most people. And at the same time that he's alive, they say there's not record that he actually came in contact with these imperial universities, but he must have been aware that imperial universities were happening. And he seems to have wanted to leave his mark on the profession in a way that would allow it to expand to the most people. And he does this by blending these three things, but he also strips away some of the superstition and religion and mysticism that are involved in a lot of religious arts. And he did this with some of the substances. Like he's the first one to change it from goo or parasite and gwei and ghost. And he starts to become like, let's call it phlegm. Let's give it a substance that we can rally around that's going to be a little bit more tangible for people. Because if we start broadcasting intangible things to the untrained, it's going to get pretty loose pretty quick. So he offers up this first code of ethics and signaling this this future times where medicine's going to be trained at kind of imperial university type settings, and it's going to be, what would you call it, codified. It's going to be universalized and standardized. And again, for better and for worse, the baby in the bathwater concept again. And basically, ethics from an Eastern perspective, this is the other half of the chapter, it revolves around the concept of day. And day is translates as virtue very often, can be translated as integrity or character, and sometimes it is translated as power. It's this virtue is power. It's almost like we have credits, these karmic credits. We have a storehouse of power based on our virtuous intentions and our virtuous activities that we can use in our lives to help others. So it has a certain amount of this mystical component, this chi that we build up that will benefit us, and it also can be translated as virtue, or character, or our integrity. But it's the foundation of everything ethical. So the same as in the West, we say integrity is not just another value or virtue. Integrity is the foundation for all this. We have to have integrity, and then we can implement all these other things, like compassion and benevolence and discernment and whatnot. So, there's the concept of day, and then we also translate, or, the virtues are sometimes ascribed to the five elements. So I have a different class that's going to discuss the virtues in the five elements and ethics, but to suffice it to say that each of the organ systems has its more challenging earthly emotions like anger and worry and fear, and then those can be exalted to sort of a higher vibration use of the channel. And that would be like wisdom, benevolence, compassion, discernment. And as we cultivate through our lives, we build up this day through working with this. And we also heal our organ systems. We can transcend these organ systems. And we can always trust that our behavior is going to be in alignment with our value system. So that's going to be the Eastern perspective, and we will take a look at how that works into our I Ching practice and into our daily professional practice as well. Thank you.